Hi, my name is Jake and Shaw, and let's talk about Tenet. Tenet. Tenet is directed by Christopher Nolan. It's his latest blockbuster in cinemas. In fact, in cinemas is such a nice word to be saying right now. It's kind of went from being marketed as this new time spy thriller to the savior of theaters. So, a lot of pressure on this movie. Tenet stars John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, Kenneth Branagh, Debicki, her. Tenet is a film about a guy who gets recruited to basically prevent this evil bad guy from starting World War III. Tenet is a lot of fun, but it also will ask a lot of you, but we'll get into that later. I want to start off this review with the positives that I have for Tenet, and then we'll dive into some of the problems that I have with it. The highlights of this film are in the action and in the acting categories. In particular, Kenneth Branagh really stood out in this film to me. He plays this really evil guy who he just comes across this green with he's just a force that you don't want to collide with. He goes over the top, but he goes over the top in the greatest way possible. And I was like, okay, I dig that. Robert Pattinson is really charming in the movie. It just makes me all the more excited to see him play Batman later next year. Yeah. John David Washington is really fun in the film. He kind of brings some of the humor. Debicki, I'm hoping I'm saying her name right. She's kind of the heart of the film, surprisingly. So, although the characters are great in this movie, or at least the acting is great, no one really has a actual story circle, like a full character arc. Her character in the film, she plays Kat. At least I think it was Kat. Man, I hope it was Kat. She plays the wife of Kenneth Branagh, and she's in this really abusive relationship, and she's wanting to get out of that. I would say her character probably she has the most heart, and she has reasons for what she's doing. Everyone else in the movie, they kind of is just asking a lot of you to just trust the movie. John David Washington, his character doesn't really have any second thoughts about going into something. It's more like he's presented with an idea and he's like, yeah, I'm on board. Let's go on to the action category. The action in this movie is really cool. Nolan is once again dealing with time moving forward, backwards. That's all I'll say about that. It was really cool getting to see an action scene done kind of weird. It's very hard to describe because you have in this story you have people going forward and you have people going backwards, and sometimes you have people who are going forwards and going backwards going with each other, and that's really interesting and creates a really interesting dynamic. However, what really drags down action scenes in this movie for me, even though I had a lot of fun with those scenes, it does come down to the plot. When Inception came out, for the most part, there were a lot of people who walked out. Maybe they had questions, but they kind of understood what was happening in Inception. This movie is more complex than Inception. It's asking a lot of you. There aren't any scenes that allow information to settle in and breathe. You're kind of learning things on the fly. Everyone talks really fast. Everyone will mumble. People will talk in accents. And part of that is okay, but part of that comes down to the sound mixing. I don't know what it is about this movie. There's this weird thing happening in the movie where, just for example, I could be talking and giving you exposition, or in this case, my review, but you have all of these sound effects going on in the background and this score that is just drowning you out. So there were several points in this movie where I'm assuming key information was given, and I was just kind of sitting there trying to process it, but I couldn't hear it. I was just it made me feel it's what I imagine being old is like. And if that's what it's like, boy, am I looking forward to that. Um that was so mean. There's a character in the very beginning of the movie who kind of sets up what's happening with this movie. It's a spy movie, but she kind of sets up the basic knowledge for how time is going to semi work in this film. And while explaining it, she, no joke, says to our main character, don't try to understand it. I turned to my friend in the theater and we both looked at each other like, huh? Like in Nolan's other movies, I hate comparing it to this one so often, but Inception, for example, Inception, this movie, unlike Inception, doesn't let characters kind of explain themselves. Like you don't really know a whole lot about the gang in Inception trying to do the mind heist, but you understand why they're there and what they're there for. Like why are they part of his team? Why are they essential? In this movie, you get kind of tastes of that. My brain is hurting trying to review this movie without going into spoilers. Overall, I think Tenet is a fun movie, another fun movie directed by our main man, Christopher Nolan. I really have to applaud him for his original ideas, his creativity, his imagination when making films, because he could be like a lot of other people and making all of these reboots, sequels, prequels, blah, blah, blah. But thankfully, we have this director who's willing to at least try things, even if they don't necessarily work for everyone. I'm going to give this movie a B minus. So this is my first of many reviews that I'm going to be doing from now on. I'm going to try to get a review for major movies or just movies that I watch in general. Better setup will come in time. Obviously trying to figure out a format. But yeah, as always, like, maybe subscribe if you want, and I'll see you next time. Adios.